Today I'm going to be making my forefathers proud, and by that I mean all of my gluttonous ancestors, those who would see any form of meal and immediately consume it because it's in our greedy fat American veins. I have a hot dog here, and I've always wanted to have a hot dog deep inside of me. So, I'm going to be— Hey, Gallows, please wait, bro. There's something we need to discuss. I heard you gluttonously saying that you, always wanted to have me inside of you. Well, what if I told you I have the same dream? Really? I want the sexiest, finest bun to let me get all in between those bready thighs and say, "Ew, hot dog, stop pinching my butt with your wiener." Now, I know it sounds far-fetched. Why are you looking at me like that? Does this not sway you? A young wiener's dreams, please? No, bro! Please don't do this! No! That was a little bit weird. I can't lie. That was a little bit odd. He wanted to get all up in those bready thighs. Man, if only somebody would make a movie about something like that. That was crazy. Oh, wait. There's Sausage Party. Today I'm going to be rewatching Sausage Party after almost 10 years. I haven't seen this movie in a very, very long time, and I have some mixed feelings about how this is going to go. Is it going to be an absolute classic that is kind of so bad that it's actually funny, or is it just going to be so genuinely awful that I don't want to sit through it because, I just know what's to come. I know about that dirty ending that is approaching me rapidly. It's coming fast. Literally. So we're going to experience that. Like, subscribe if you like content just like this. Let's get into Sausage Party. So Sausage Party opens with all of the different foods and drinks, all of the products, singing a song about the great beyond, which is basically their heaven. Nothing bad is going to happen to food after it's bought at the grocery store. And I have so many questions about that initially. Obviously, I'm just kind of thinking deeper into it. But how did all of these foods not have an instance where there was like a 400-pound 9-year-old walking through the store? He gets to the deli and he sees a big old piece of fried chicken and he's like, "Ooh, God, I just can't resist." And he sprints up, just starts horking it down while all the food is just staring in awe and fear, watching this 9-year-old. His alcoholic, also 400-pound father's like, "Boy, save some for me," as they both just start horking it down, slobbering on all of it. And then you have the mother in the fruit aisle just like, "I'll just have one grape. Maybe one more." And then she just eats an entire bag of grapes. I feel like there's so many situations where there's a lot of people in a grocery store that just can't possibly resist tasting and testing everything. So, you know, the fact that every single, product in this grocery store hasn't seen something horrible at this point is honestly a miracle. So they're all singing about it. The wieners and the hot dogs are singing about how they want to get up inside of the buns. So that's something interesting to say the least. Then we get to meet all of our main characters. We have Frank, who's voiced by Seth Rogen. We have a Jonah Hill hot dog. We got all these hot dogs. One of them is deformed, and they make fun of him for being deformed. We got some thrilling dialogue with that. And then for the next 3 minutes, I get it, you gotta establish a little bit of a romance here, but it's genuinely like if I was to ask for Seth Rogen to have phone sex with me. That is basically what I'm listening to right now. It's just Frank and the bun just sitting there talking about how they want to get up all inside of each other. Like, genuinely, if Seth Rogen was to whisper in your ear, "I can't wait to be inside of you." I can't do his Seth Rogen impression, but that's basically what it is.
Just get up in there. Just raw dog it.
Oh yeah, just the tips, Brenda. Just the tips. For 3 minutes. That is all they continuously discuss. So, that was pretty interesting. So Brenda and Frank, they touch tips, they touch their little fingers, it's so magical and emotional, and then we have this woman going around buying everybody. She grabs the hot dogs, she grabs the buns, puts them together, and that means in the great beyond, they could get down and dirty, they could get all up inside of each other. Woo! Everything you could possibly ask for in the afterlife, because that's the whole point of it. Gotta keep that clear. And then we get to meet the douche, which is a very interesting character. context-wise, because a douche, you gotta put it inside, you clean yourself up a little bit, get looking nice and good. But every single other food in this grocery store, they think they're in for something magical. They don't know that they're gonna be eaten, so why does the douche look up at this woman who just picked her out as like, oh yeah, I'm gonna get all up inside of that. Ooh.
DTD, dude. Down the douche.
What? How do you know that is your purpose? How do you know you have to crawl up inside of there to fulfill your destiny? Why is he the one thing in the grocery store that knows what is going to befall him? That was so interesting, and he makes that his life mission. He wants to get all up in that. And so we then get to see this jar of honey mustard, who initially, during the song at the beginning, was taken away to the great beyond, but was returned shortly after. And the things that this little jar of honey mustard is talking about is one of the most terrifying things I could ever imagine. I don't know, did Jay Schlatt buy the honey mustard? That's the only person I could really imagine, because he must have been just pounding and using that thing up, because the honey mustard's like, oh no, they come in your eyes, they jack off on you. What?
Shit, jacking off in our fucking faces.
What was somebody doing to this little honey mustard? What was going on out there? I can't even fathom it, but it is interesting to imagine who would have bought honey mustard for that purpose. Because why would you use honey mustard? I mean, I can only imagine what this thing went through out there if he's saying these things. Again, I don't know what he went through, but I can't imagine going to heaven and then returning and saying they cummed all over my face without seeing, something big and snake and flesh-like on top of me, or, in my jar, to say the least. So that was interesting. So, Honey Mustard now wants to kill himself, so Frank tries to stop this, Brenda tries to stop this, the bread and the hot dog, they're trying to save it, and in all of the chaos, the Honey Mustard still manages to fall all the way to his death, thus knocking everything else in the shopping cart over. And it's just chaos. Everybody's running around, everybody's disturbed, everybody is scared, and I just think it's one of the best origin stories you could ever have for a villain character. The douche not being able to get all up inside of that snatch. He couldn't get in there. No, please! I could still get in there, bro. I could still get up in there. I could still get in! As he's crawling on the floor, staring at the thick woman walking away, begging and pleading. He's not going to be able to get all up in there. He's very mad at Frank and Brenda. He gets swept away, thrown into the trash as everybody begins to argue. Nobody knows what to do. And once again, almost every single bit of dialogue in this movie is in some way connected to getting down and dirty. Like the tortilla, he's really upset because he's like, ugh, if I would have gotten out of here, I would have had 80 extra virgin olive oil waiting to coat my body. He's very upset about that, and the way he says it is so unbelievably seductive. I'm never quite ready for that, but I can't really complain about the dialogue because the movie is so confident in what it is that I don't really think it's a problem. I think a lot of the scenes can be funny, especially if you're just kind of blankly staring at it and watching it and just thinking about the fact that these are in fact foods that don't have any greater purpose other than getting inside of each other or getting used up, which makes a pretty interesting movie to say the least. And then it gets so much worse when you consider the context of the next scene where we see the douche crawling out of the trash can. Our man is still alive, but he's leaking juice. He's staring at himself in the mirror and he's like, oh, who's gonna want me, bro? Who's gonna want me? Nobody's gonna want me without my juice to fill up their snatch. I need to get all up in their sneeze. How am I gonna make them squirt?
Let you up in their smooth, perfect sliz when you can't even squirt.
That's so interesting. I still love that of all the things in the grocery store, the douche knows his purpose of climbing all up in there. Because in my mind, if you were this little product, the way that the douche is shaped, I would have no idea what my purpose is. I would have no concept of that. You could say he was inherently born with the desire to get all up in there, but personally, if I was a douche in the grocery store and I got chosen, I'd be like, what's going to happen to me? Oh, I'm so excited. And then I'm just being grabbed and just, I'd be like, because I'm assuming if I was a douche, I would have no concept of attraction to women. Maybe the douche does. He wants to get all up in that. But personally, if I was shaped like a douche and all of a sudden I was being thrust inside of the dangerous animal known as the clitoris or the anal gland, I would be like, it stinks in here! You know? Wouldn't you? I mean, that's just my take on it. But the douche, he sees this little poor juice box. This poor little juice box, and he decides that he's gonna walk over there. The juice box is begging and pleading for life. He's fading out because he's leaking, and the douche decides to drink that juice as he's saying, "Oh yeah, you like that?" As he's slurping him dry, slurping him up really good.
Fucking like that.
And this is where the movie, like, it gets weird for me enjoyment-wise, because it's so hard to watch these scenes that have so many, you know, innuendos for what it's actually supposed to be. I'm watching a juice box get sucked dry right now as the life is being sucked out of him, and it's very interesting. But either way, the douche gets jacked, he gets big, and he is ready to take some revenge on Frank and Brenda. So far, a pretty decent start to the movie. I'm only 20 minutes in, so I'm going to continue watching. Alright, so that's another 20 minutes down, and so far, I only liked a few scenes in this section. Again, the quality is all over the place. Like, some of the dialogue feels really shitty, and then all of a sudden they tell something super witty that gets me to just chuckle, slap my knee, slap my belly in delight. So, it's all over the place, but the feelings that I get while watching this movie, because it's so up and down, kind of makes me enjoy it a little bit more. I kind of feel like I'm on a roller coaster, and half of the roller coaster is made with wood and half of it's made with metal. Sometimes I feel like I'm gonna die, and sometimes I'm like, woo! So they're walking through the liquor aisle, and just to give you a, you know, concept, an idea of how thrilling the dialogue in this movie is, Frank, he wants to go and see this, like, head chief piece of liquor. He's a firehawk liquor who's immortal. He wants to go see him to try to find out the truth about the religion, the great beyond. And Brenda, her response to Frank saying that he wants to go and do this is, am I dry humping on a 40-ounce bottle right now? Not. Because I don't think so.
I'll just be out here dry humping this 40-ounce. Not.
Who wrote that line? Did everybody in the writer's room start just getting up and clapping for that, or were they all just dry humping on a 40-ounce? Not. Like, that's the only way that I could imagine they would let that line in the movie. It's just so dumb. But again, it was so unbelievably stupid that it kind of got me to laugh. Because why would you say something like that? Like, in what context? Like, genuinely, like, let's put a real-life connotation on that. Let's say you go to a strip club and you find your dirty, stinky, cheating husband and he's getting twerked on, and you just walk up to him and was like, "Did I say that it was okay to get twerked on?" Not. What? Okay, that was just kind of dumb, just a little bit. So Frank is then seen smoking that ganj with the immortals, learning the truth about the world. You have Brenda and the tortilla and the bagel. They're all walking through the supermarket, and then this random liquor comes up and is like, "Oh yeah, I can take you to your hot dog. Oh yeah, your sausage." And so they take him, and that is when we get to meet the taco. And the taco takes one look at the bun and is like, "Ooh la la! Oh, she is beautiful!" And I need to mention that every single side character in this movie, they don't necessarily serve a grandiose purpose other than building up to the fact of what's going to happen at the end of the movie, and that is just getting down and dirty. Like, the tortilla and the bagel, they're just arguing all the time so that they could have that sexual big blow-off at the end of the movie. And then the taco, upon seeing the bread, is like, "Oh, Dios mío. I have to control myself," you know, just struggling immensely, but it's decent. But it's just every other scene, they're just struggling with their inner desires, their inner demons. And that is when the douche shows up once again. kills a bottle as everybody's hiding and they all have to try to run away from the douche. We cut back to Frank and he's learning about some things about how the things that can't expire, they made up this entire song so that everybody would be happy about, you know, going to their deaths instead of being afraid of the end, which is honestly a pretty good strategy. I mean, if I was a sentient piece of food and I knew I was going to die, I wouldn't want to know I was going to die until right before it's going to happen, I guess. You know, that's at least a little bit better. But then we get some more thrilling dialogue that actually got me to laugh, where the head chief is all like, and then things got a little bit fucky, as he's describing what happened with the song, and everybody had their own interpretations of the great beyond. There's this one food that is just Hitler, and they're like, exterminate the Jews! Exterminate the Jews!
Juice? I didn't write that shit. I love Jews. Always have. I mean, Jews are hilarious. Who the
And the dude's reaction to that's pretty funny, where he's like, what the fuck? Exterminate the Jews? Those guys are funny, man. Why do we want to do that? Seth Rogen was slapping his belly at that witty one. But that was kind of funny. I enjoyed that. So we then cut to the foods that got taken away earlier in the movie, with Carl the hot dog being the main focus. I think that's his name. I don't really remember. Carl and the short little stubby hot dog, the little guy, they're being the main focus of this, and we see all the foods just being so happy. But one thing that I have to point out, this is the same lady that wanted to buy the douche, and I don't know if this is like a genuine thing that happens to people, but she like grabs her pants, lifts it up, and is like, oh god, I really did need that douche.
Shit. Oh, I really needed that douche.
Is it so stinky and sweaty that it's like causing you to like smell it and feel it contorting down there, that you're like, oh god, I really needed that to clean in there? I have never heard of such a thing. I've never heard a man be all like, oh, I really should have gotten that cock ring. Obviously, I don't have innards that need to be thrust clean, but I can't imagine just sitting there talking to myself, lifting my pants up and being all like, oh, I really needed that douche. Ooh, I could smell it down there. That's just interesting. That's just something I wanted to point out because I've never seen that in any form of media ever. So that's something to take into consideration. And then we have all the foods being super excited because they're in the great beyond. They don't know the harm that is about to befall them, and this is actually such an interesting concept for a rated R animated movie. Just watching all of these foods get so excited, the potato like, the pipes, I'm so excited, as he starts getting sliced open to be made into a nice juicy mashed potato, and everybody's watching in complete and utter horror. That is kind of a really funny concept. As he's just getting gripped, he's held above boiling water. Jesus Christ, you fucking whore!
Fucking whore! Me eyes!
As he's dropped in, and then the woman just starts going to town, murdering everybody. It is a horrific sight. But I have questions on the fact that the food can actually move. Like the baby carrots, they're seen running out of the bowl, and they almost roll off the counter, and the lady grabs them and swallows them. They're eating children! No! And then Carl and the short little stubby hot dog, I'll remember his name eventually, they get up in a windowsill, and the woman grabs a knife and stabs Carl, brutally murdering him. And then the tiny little stubby hot dog falls out of the window. So as the woman's sitting there seeing these wieners suddenly appear in the windowsill and one roll backwards and not question it at all, like, oh, you know, wieners, they like to go wherever they want to go. So relatable. Oh, I really should have gotten that douche. You know, like, is that her response? I just can't fathom it. So that happens, and we now see that the short little stubby wiener is able to escape his fate and is now running around the city. We then cut back to the bun and the tortilla and the taco, and the douche finds them and is chasing them down, and they barely manage to squeeze through this crack thanks to butter, and we end this illustrious 20 minutes of movie cinema experience with the taco staring at the bun's ass and being like, oh, Dios mío, I need to be a good taco. Oh, because you just can't resist that voluptuous, bready ass.
I promise to be a good taco.
So, yeah, I'm not having a bad time. I don't think you can have a bad time while watching this movie, because, I mean, it's one of those things where I go into it and I'm not expecting the most amazing story ever. I'm expecting complete and utter stupidity, and sometimes it gets me to laugh, sometimes I'm questioning why I'm watching this in the first place, but overall, it's not a bad experience. So we then cut to Barry running around the streets, and that is the name of the short little stubby hot dog, who is very girthy. That is one of the main traits I've gotten from this character so far. He's running around, he doesn't know what to do because the gods have betrayed him, and he stumbles upon a assortment of things that I did not remember being in this movie. First, he finds some fecal matter with some corn in it, and dear lord, wouldn't it suck to be corn? What's your name? Can you just imagine just being all like, hallelujah, we're gonna get eaten, it's gonna be beautiful, and then you have to go through the horrible traumatic experience of actually getting eaten, and then you're like, I don't know, you know when Eren Yeager gets eaten in Attack on Titan and he's sitting there and there's that girl that's like, Mom, where am I? It's so hot in here. Just sitting in a stomach rotting away, but because you're corn, you're just, I cannot die. And you eventually get pushed out of somebody's rectum down into the abyss, and you either drown, or in this case, you're just sitting in a mean old pile of stinky fecal matter. So that's Korn's existence, that's something to think about. And then he finds a condom. And let me tell you, let me have you close your eyes for just 1 second here. If you were a condom, pretend you're a condom, close your eyes, think about it. Would you consider this a good existence or a bad existence? You know, because this condom, he doesn't seem too happy about it, but maybe there's condoms that are like the douche who are like, oh yeah, I need to get all up in that. But in a condom's case, please explode in me, burst in me, let me fulfill my desires. You know, like, is that some of their feelings, or is this one just an outlier and he just like is suffering? I don't know, I'm not sure, but the condom walks up and he's like, it was all fun and games until splooge, and then splooge, because he got used up. That's a tragedy for that one. But Barry ends up finding this guy who is buying bath salts and decides to tag a little ride with him back to his house. So we then see Frank and Brenda reuniting and talking about the great beyond, and now Frank doesn't believe it anymore, Brenda does, so they're at odds, and Brenda says that she's gonna go find a nice eggplant to fill her bread up. Those bready thighs will be used up by an eggplant. So that's interesting to say the least. We then get immediately after this a sad montage of hallucinogenic nightmares where Frank is running in the wilderness, the cold isle, and he sees Brenda about to get used by a giant, big, thick eggplant. You know, everybody's biggest nightmare is there going to be something bigger lurking on the horizon, something purple and green that could go in there that will satisfy them in different ways. At least that's what Frank is suffering with, so that's interesting. So we then come back to Barry, and, you know, he's with the bath salts guy, and the bath salts guy, he injects himself, takes a little bit of bath salts, and all of a sudden, oh, I want to rip off my neighbor's face because it feels so good to do bath salts. It was so worth it. You know, the typical reaction. But instead of going to rip off somebody's face, he looks down and he sees the small little girthy Barry guy with gloves, with legs, talking to him, saying, take me home, take me home. And if I saw a small little hot dog begin to talk to me while I'm tripping absolute sack, I don't know if I would ever recover. Like, how do you wake up after that situation with all of these foods coming at you, talking to you, the toilet paper in the bathroom being all like, why did you do this to me? Why did you use me for this?
You don't wanna fucking know.
I don't know if I would ever recover. Like, can you imagine a toilet paper begging and pleading for you to not use it anymore, and then the next day after the trip of a lifetime, you're sitting on the toilet just staring at this piece of toilet paper like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. As you just, you know, begin the illustrious wiping process. That's just something to think about. So that guy's tripping sack. He falls asleep. We then cut back to some more thrilling dialogue that, once again, I'm convinced the animators are just like writing everything, or the writers and animators, they're writing everything and they're animating everything and they're just shaking like this. They're just like, are we at the ending yet? Can we animate? Can we animate it? Can we please animate it? Because it feels like every other scene is just building up to the illustrious ending. You have the tortilla and the bagel or the donut or whatever talking to each other and just being all like, ooh, we both like hummus. perhaps we're not so different. And then the taco and the bun saying goodbye to each other as the taco begins to go like, oh, come on. I'm not a good taco, I'm a horny taco. But they can't be together because it's against the wishes of the gods. We cut back to the bath salts dude, and he wakes up and he no longer views them as food. So he grabs Barry and he's going to throw him into a pot to cook him alive. And it cuts away before we get to see what happens. That's absolutely insane. Frank, he finds a book that showcases how everything bad is going to happen, how they're going to eat all of us, and he shows it to the entire grocery store. And they don't believe him. They don't want to believe him. So Frank, he tries to save everybody. He tries to save Brenda. He tries to save all his friends, and he just can't do it. But that's when Barry shows up. He's apparently alive. He didn't get boiled. And that's when we get to the shock value part of this movie, where everything is so rapid fire and crazy that it genuinely made me open my eyes and just drop my mouth to the floor, especially when Barry is like, you can kill a god. And his head just drops down from a vent. He killed the bath salts dude. Well, he killed himself. He knocked a pot of boiling water onto his head and then an axe chopped off his head. Which is absolutely insane. How did they drag his silly little noggin all the way here, and why? Can you imagine that? Because you have to think about the fact that there's an aftermath of this movie where there are reporters and investigations about all these missing people, all these people that died, and let's just focus on the bath salts dude for a second. His body eventually had to be stumbled upon, and it's decapitated. And where did they find it? 10 minutes away at a grocery store. Why? How? How does it happen? Nobody knows. I'm more concerned as to why the foods decided that they were gonna drag his big old disgusting noggin all the way there, but I'm all for it. I thought it was actually pretty funny. So then we get to one of my biggest fears, IRL, being drugged in public without my knowledge, if somebody was to put LSD in my water or some shit. But in this case, it's even more terrifying. Can you imagine you're just at the grocery store with even your daughter? I'm so glad there was no kids in this grocery store, but just, I'm so excited to cook for my family tonight. I'm so excited. They're gonna love this meal that I prepare. Oh, what was that? Did a bug bite me? You get shot with a toothpick and it's just laced with bath salts, and all of a sudden you just start tripping, absolute sack, all of the food around you comes to life and is trying to absolutely brutally assault and murder you. You're just sitting there and you're freaking out because you're on bath salts. You're like, I gotta kill it. What is this? You're just panicking, and all of a sudden a fucking bun grabs you by the skull, calls you a skank, and bashes your face into the ground. Dear Lord.
Stay away from my sausage, you skank!
That is something you could never really expect in life. I absolutely couldn't believe that. So all of the other humans, because they're now on bath salts, they have an innate desire to try to kill the food. So all the food tries to find really insane ways to kill all of them. And you see this 600-pound man, he needs a crane to get out of bed. He's running, chasing after the food. He slips, and he dies in the most gruesome way ever. But come on, I mean, this big boy, he had such high cholesterol, he'd probably want to go this way. With the Mentos dropping some Mentos down into his mouth and then a Coke bottle jumping inside of him, giving their life to take out this big meaty man, he died in such a gruesome way. But I think that's probably how he would have wanted it, you know? If I'm gonna take out all this food, then I'm gonna be over 450 pounds. Well, damn, the food might as well take me out, too. So, he dies. And then we get to see the douche. We haven't seen him in the movie for a while. I was wondering when he was going to show back up. And there's this nerdy little clerk that works there. He's panicking. He's freaking out. He grabs a gun. And then the douche approaches him. Now, imagine you work 8 hours a day at the grocery store. You hate your life. You're not having a fun day. You're just like, oh, God. Oh, what's happening? All this food is coming to life. And then you hear, easy now, bro. I need to get all up in there. A hole is a hole.
What I was looking for, but fuck it, hole's a hole, bro.
I couldn't imagine. I couldn't imagine just at my age. At my 5 days a week, 8 hours a day job, I just fucking hear a hole is a hole as I stare down at a thing approaching my rectum as it starts swirling and crawling its way in there. And now there's a douche inside of my ass controlling all of my movements. That is absolutely insane. So he's going around shooting all of the food. Eventually he finds Frank and he just is full manic mode. He starts trying to eat Frank, taking a nibble out of him, before they eventually get this, like, propane tank to shoot at him. And the guy, once again, just, oh man, my 8-hour shift, and it's so hard working here, oh, as he gets blasted in the sky and blown to oblivion. He's dead. Everybody dies. And again, like, what is the aftermath of this situation? What are the investigators and all the people who go to this grocery store? Do you think that there was, like, one guy who, like, was just outside of the grocery store as all this was happening, and he's walking up, he's just like, I can't wait to make some spaghetti for my family. What's going on in there? What the hell? What the hell? And then just during the autopsy, everybody's on bath salts. Everybody's covered in some kind of liquid that's a different food. I just couldn't even fathom this. It is absolutely insane what goes on to end this movie. So, all the humans die. The foods are all happy. And then, like, the next 5 or 6 minutes is just them getting down and dirty. And, like, let's be honest, like, can I even really complain? I mean, if anybody's earned it, it's them.
I'm actually over here jerking off with these fellas.
If anybody can get down and freaky with it, it would be them. I just didn't think that people could find so many different ways for different foods and beverages to have dirty, animalistic sex. I really didn't expect it, didn't want it. I'm not going to show you any of it. I could show you maybe one scene that you could make an inference of what's happening, but I'm going to just tell you, it's not what you think. They're actually playing Pokemon in this scene. Yeah, they were playing with Pokemon cards right there. I want to say that's genuinely 100% what happens in the film. Monetization police, that they're playing Pokemon right there. I swear it. They're playing Pokemon. So, that's Sausage Party for you. I didn't really expect to enjoy this movie in any kind of way, and it's not like I thought it was the greatest thing ever, but it also wasn't the worst thing ever. You know, it's so bad that some parts of it are really funny. The dialogue especially is all over the place. It genuinely feels like they were just high as hell while writing this movie, and I wouldn't be surprised if they would just own up to that and be like, yeah, we were cooked as hell. I mean, who the hell cares? Because that's just the way the entire movie feels and works. They don't do anything that's so gross and abhorrent that it's hard to watch this movie. It just kind of feels like it was intended to be exactly what they wanted. A R-rated animated movie that just pushes all of your thoughts and all of your, you know, what you would normally typically see in animation in an animated movie like this, which would normally be for kids, and just make it as absurd and abhorrent as possible, and I think they achieved that. So overall, if I was to rate Sausage Party 1 to 10, I would give it a 7. Again, it does exactly what it was intended to do. I'm not going to fault it for that. It was a decent time, got a couple of laughs. I don't know if I'll ever watch it again, though. But that was an experience. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please make sure to like and subscribe. We'll do 500 likes and I'll cover all of Sausage Party Foodtopia. So yeah, there's a little goal for you. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.